For some reasons unknown, the friendship between the four golden members of Natchez society fell apart. The two couples were never seen together again. It also remains a mystery as to when marriage plans dissolved between Jeannie and Duncan as well. The stories say that a wedding was forbidden to them by Duncan's mother, who would not approve of the two cousins getting married, but no one knows for sure. After the death of her father in 1883, Jeannie was left with a great inheritance. Her family home, called Elms Court, was burdened with a heavy mortgage. However, and for some reason, Jeannie neglected to make the payments. The house was seized by the bank, even though Jeannie had enough money to pay off the debt. She left Elms Court and for an extended period lived at Glenwood with Dick. For years afterward, she moved from house to house in Natchez before buying Glen Burnie in 1904. Octavia and her now widowed sister were already living in reduced circumstances when Nydia died in 1893. Before she died, Nydia made arrangements with Dick for Octavia to reside at Glenwood, and some have wondered if perhaps the visits by the two women may have overlapped. Could they have argued, leading to the destruction of their friendship? Whatever occurred, Jeannie soon moved to Glen Burnie, but Octavia remained at Glenwood for the rest of her life. Soon after taking up residence in her new home, Jeannie became increasingly odd. She soon developed a taste for seclusion and isolation, and her doors were closed to everyone but Duncan. Each night at dusk, he would ride to Glen Burnie and stay with Jeannie until dawn. Then he would ride back home and have breakfast with his mother, who had objected to his marrying Jeannie. Some believe that the couple had secretly married anyway, but there remains no record of it. In time, Duncan began to share Jeannie's eccentricities. He became very withdrawn as he grew older, speaking to no one, apparently satisfied with the life that Jeannie had chosen for him. As for Jeannie, she became odder still, as well as very domineering and aggressive. She forced her way to the front of waiting lines and refused to yield the right-of-way when driving her carriage and later her Packard automobile. Like Duncan and Jeannie, Dick also began to become quite strange. He began to fall into states of depression that would last for days at a time. His hair and beard began to grow long and tangled, and he wandered the woods for hours as Octavia stood by and watched helplessly. He was often the victim of practical jokes by young local boys, and one story recalls how they pursued him through the woods until he finally climbed a tree to escape. Octavia had to chase them away and spent more than an hour trying to coax him down. Another prank frightened Dick onto the roof of an outbuilding, where he crouched in terror for several days. The farm at Glenwood began to fall apart, and with no income, Dick's inheritance dwindled and then ran out. The house itself crumbled into a state of disrepair. The herd of goats that had been purchased for their milk soon began to wander in and out of the mansion, joined by the chickens and other animals. A heavy layer of dust coated everything in Glenwood, and birds nested in chairs and on the furniture that had not been stripped and devoured by the goats. Curtains and drapes hung in shreds, and priceless books became water-stained and ruined. Only Dick's piano managed to remain untouched by the devastation. Years passed, and the two houses continued to exist both near and far away from one another. Glenwood continued to deteriorate, while Glen Burnie became a house of secrets. In an age of electric lights and automobiles, the owners of both mansions shunned electricity and the coming of the modern era.